Good morning and welcome to the Interim Finance Committee meeting. Committee Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Senator Buck for Senator Titus. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Goycochea. Senator Hammond for Senator Sievers-Gansert. Senator Harris. Senator Neal. Senator Nguyen. Vice Chair Dondero Loop. Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblywoman Baron May. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblyman C.H. Miller. Assemblywoman Miller for Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblywoman Mosca for Assemblywoman Howdegi. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Yeager. Chairman Ro Moreno.
And I am here. Welcome, everyone. We thought we would be down in Vegas, but as luck has it, we're still in Carson City because we're in a special session. So thanks for joining us. I'll remind everyone to turn off your electronic devices or at least mute them. If you'd like to provide public comment by phone, our number for the day is 669-900-6833. Our meeting ID is 860-0512-2144, and then please press pound. We will be taking items a little out of order, and before going to the agenda, I'm going to have our fiscal analyst explain why we're taking things a little out of order today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Sarah Kaufman, Legislative Council Bureau Fiscal Analysis Division. As the Chair had mentioned, we currently are still in special session, and as such, the provisions of NRS 218E405 still apply. That provision of NRS limits the ability for the Interim Finance Committee to take certain actions, specifically related to providing allocations from the IFC contingency account, and as well as there are certain provisions that are not allowed as a result of or related to the State Public Works Division and NRS 341.121. That impacts items on the agenda as follows. Items H, I1, I2, and K1. And as such, if we are still in special session, the committee will not be able to act upon those items. So again, those are items H, I1, I2, and K1. Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you so much. And Madam Secretary, I failed to say that will you please mark Senator Cannizzaro, Senator Harris, and Assemblywoman Dickman present as they arrive, and Assemblywoman Dickman is here. So, following our agenda, we do have our first session of public comment. If you're here for public comment, I ask that you limit your comments to just 2 minutes. We'll have another opportunity for public comment at the end of today's meeting. So if there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to make public comment, I invite you to the table. If there's anyone in Las Vegas, you can go ahead and fill in the seats there in Las Vegas. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Kat Miller. I'm a member of the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home Advisory Board, and I'd like to introduce co-chair of the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home Veterans Art Garden Development Team, Army Sergeant Larry Quinn, a Vietnam veteran, for a very brief statement he'd like to make.
I never realized there were so many good-looking people
Short,
in
Larry.
Carson City. Anyway, we have an outdoor visitation area, and it's very important to us, especially when people come up and they've got their kids, you know, and whatever like that. They can turn them loose if they have an outdoor visitation area. Otherwise, it gets a little crazy with a bunch of kids or whoever. Anyway, we also want to have a stage. I know it sounds a little strange, but we want to have a stage, small stage for performances at the home. And I'm very much behind that because I would be the director. And I've had a lot of experience, and it's the perfect scenario to have a little stage when you get people coming to a theater. It's a unique experience. And anyway, we're going for that. The other obvious thing is outdoor visitation. It's good for the head. It's good for the mental and emotional. I'm sorry, I'm got a little weird. But anyway, everybody loves to be able to go outside somewhere where they can sit around and be in an area that's comfortable and that's, especially when it's surrounded by beautiful plants and flowers. And we're going to do some planting, and we're going to have flowers in our outdoor area.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Right.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to make public comment.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us this morning. I look forward to that direction of the play on the stage. Any other public comment? All right, not seeing any here in Carson City, not seeing anyone at the table there in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to make public comment in this first opportunity for public comment for today's meeting?
The public line is open and working, but there are no callers to participate at this time.
Thank you so much. So moving on to the next item on our agenda, it is the statement of the American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund obligations, and remaining reserve balances within the COVID-19 relief program's budget account. Welcome, Mr. Leiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Brody Leiser, Fiscal Analysis Division. It's good to see everyone this morning. I was hoping when Ms. Kaufman was going through the items that couldn't be heard that she was going to mention Agenda Item C, but it did not happen. So I will walk through Agenda Item C, which is the statement of American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund obligations and remaining reserve balances. The statement can be found online. It's posted as Exhibit C, and I believe that all members should have a copy provided to them. There are 12 work programs submitted for consideration today, of which 8 are requesting to authorize a total of $7.7 million under the $100 million authority set aside for state agencies. The other 4 items would transfer existing authority within or between budget accounts. Therefore, none of the requests impact the overall balance displayed on the summary sheet of the statement. The statement has been updated to account for actions taken during the 82nd session of the legislature, which I will cover briefly as I walk through each section of the statement. So if you look at the first page of the statement, which we refer to as the summary page, you'll notice towards the top, we've rolled up the actions from the 81st session. The details are provided in the next section, and we've added a new section there that shows the amounts obligated through actions of the 82nd session of the legislature that total just over $39 million. As you can see, when accounting for those actions on the summary statement on page 1 at the bottom, The remaining unobligated balance of coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds is approximately $3.3 million, all of which is shown under the lost revenue reserve as displayed on page 1. On pages 2 through 13, these detail the obligations approved to date. I would like to just go over the new section or information that's been added that begins on page 2. This summarizes about the middle, towards the bottom of the page, summarizes the actions taken during the 82nd session of the legislature. This includes funding that was recommended by the governor and approved by the legislature within the base budget, as well as enhancement decision units, additional funding approved by the legislature to support various programs through the budget closing process, and as well as amounts that were approved through the passage of the noted legislation that carries over onto page 3 of the statement. Also reflected under this new section are savings that were identified through the budget closing process. These savings were identified and memorialized through that process, and those items are the last 3 rows of this new section that are towards the bottom of page 3. As I mentioned earlier, in total, the net impact of the actions taken during the 82nd session of the legislature obligated $39.2 million. On page 13 of the statement, the items that are on agenda list E for the committee's consideration today are summarized. And moving on to pages 14 through 20 reflect the breakdown statement for select obligations of the coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds. We focus mainly on the $100 million set aside here that's broken down on these pages. Again, we have updates, and you'll see on page 20, updates have been made to include and account for funding that was, again, recommended by the governor and approved by the legislature within the base budget, additional funding approved by the legislature to support various programs through the budget process, as well as through the passage of legislation. There are 8 items, as I mentioned previously, on page 20 under this section for allocations of funding under the $100 million of authority that's been set aside for state agencies that have been submitted for consideration today. If all items submitted for consideration are approved, when accounting for the prior approvals as well as the actions taken by the legislature, there would be approximately $4.1 million in remaining unobligated authority under the $100 million set aside for state agencies. Finally, the table on page 21 provides details showing savings resulting from final program expenditures. This is the same information that has been provided previously, and there have been no updates or changes made to this section of the statement since the April 22nd meeting of the Interim Finance Committee. Madam Chair, I would just note that we are working to reconcile some of the final numbers following the end of the 82nd session of the legislature. There are a number of positions that were funded with these dollars, and with the balancing weekend and some of the rate changes, we need to go through the exercise to make sure that there are any adjustments made. And if there are any revisions made to the figures that are presented today, we will make sure to note those for the committee at a future date. There's always interest in questions about what has been spent to date, so I will just provide very briefly, again, a recap of the funding that has been actually expended to date. As a reminder, in fiscal year 2022, $440.4 million was expended. Of that, $332.4 million was to repay the unemployment compensation fund. Fiscal year 2023 to date, based on information in the state accounting system, $172.3 million has been expended to date. So in total, fiscal year to date and fiscal year 2022, $612.7 million of the $2.7 billion has been expended to date. And Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks for agenda item C.
Thank you, members. This is not an action item, just informational. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lizer? All right, not seeing any. Thank you so much. Moving on to item D on our agenda. Members, before we go on to item D, I'd like to go through E, F, and G and see if there's anything that anyone would like to pull. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On item E on the list, there are no suggested items to be pulled. On list F, approval of gifts, grants, work program revisions, and position changes not involving the expenditures of American Rescue Plan Act, coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds in accordance with Chapter 353 NRS. On page 1, items 2 and items 4 are recommended to. Moving on to page 4 of list F, item number 21 is recommended to be pulled. Continuing on to page 7 of list F, item number 38 is recommended to be pulled. On page 15, again, item 83 is recommended to be heard with item number 4. And then on page 22 of list F, item 120 is recommended to be pulled. And that concludes the items that are recommended to be pulled for list F. With regards to list N, the informational items, there are no recommended items to be pulled. So again, for list F, items 2, 4, 21, 38, 83, and 120 are recommended to be pulled.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Members, are there any other items you'd like to have pulled for this morning's meeting? Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on the informational, on N, is that N10 on the Clark County sales tax, which is the more cops money?
Okay. Any other items? All right. I am not seeing any other items, so members, so that people don't have to sit here all day, I will take a motion to approve all the items that were not pulled, and the items that are pulled are F1 or F2, 4, 21, 38, 83, 120, and N10. Can I get a motion to approve all the other items?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Senator Don Darrell Loop, a second from Assemblywoman Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. So if you were here for any other item, good morning. You can go have breakfast and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll give everyone a minute to clear the room. All right. Well, we know how to clear out a room. So bringing the meeting back to order, we'll go to item D, which is another informational item. It's the Department of Corrections, the Director's Office, and we'll invite them to the table. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Interim Finance Committee, Christina Shea, Deputy Director of Department of Corrections, for the record. With me is also Kent Lefevre with State Public Works Division. And item D is a request of $4,296,013 in American Reserve Plan Act recovery funds to fund a project at Casa Grande Transitional Housing Center related to remodeling bathrooms, showers, laundry, and water heaters, enclosures in 2 of our housing units due to issues that we're experiencing with mold. So that's the request before you. We're here for any questions you might have.
Members, do you have any questions for the presenters? You'll notice in your backup material there are a number of pictures to, I mean, you can say some things in words, but a picture speaks even louder. So there's pictures in your backup material to why this is necessary. All right, and this is just an informational item. We will not have to take action on it, but we did want the presentation. Any questions for the presenters? All right, this is going to be a really easy morning. Either they're really tired, which I know they are, but not seeing any questions for you. So thank you so much. All right, we had no items pulled from E. We will move on to F2. And F2 is the Office of the Governor, State Energy Office, and I'll invite you to the table. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for your time today. For the record, my name is Denise Froelich, and I am joined also by our director, Dwayne McClinton, in Las Vegas today. And today we are here to request an addition of $4,479,590 in Federal Department of Energy Bipartisan Infrastructure Law State Energy Program grant funds to support the implementation and monitoring of qualified state energy programs, including the addition of 7 new full-time positions authorized through the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and Inflation Reduction Act. Thank you, and if you have any questions.
Nice and short and sweet. I see there's a few positions, and I know we do have a question or two for you. Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Froelich, for being here. So I see that among the initiatives that are included in this particular grant are a 5-year energy efficiency educational campaign for public buildings and occupants. Can you provide some additional detail on what are the outcomes that are expected from that effort?
Thank you. Denise Froelich for the record. Thank you for the question. Yes, that project may or may not be implemented, and so I can't tell you more details about that at this time, but I can explain why that's the case. So these funds are intended by the Department of Energy to supplement and provide capacity for the agency to meet all of the increased IIJA and IRA funding opportunities. Because these are some of the earliest released funds, they are so that we can hire personnel to then explore how we can best apply for and use additional IIJA and IRA funds, and then how we can use these funds to potentially fill in gaps. So we will hire those personnel first. They'll look into those things, and then they'll see if those projects might be necessary or if they're covered by other funding opportunities. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. That is helpful. So I think that gives some of the clarity that I was looking for, but I just want to kind of restate it, make sure that we're on the same page. So this is initial planning and kind of infrastructure support in your office to identify additional needs and bring in some of the staffing that you'll need to get additional federal infrastructure dollars for the work that your office does. So it sounds like this is one option, but essentially you need to bring in the staff to look at all the other opportunities and options that are out there. And then as part of this, you'll kind of figure out what directions ultimately you're going to go and figure out what other pots of funding your office is going to apply for. And so this helps support us in being able to pull down additional federal funds for anything that's kind of within your office's purview. Is that correct? And then if so, if this kind of particular activity may or may not kind of be on the list, when can we expect to get, because I know you're going to have to hire these positions and everything, when can we expect to get some information on the areas that you're looking at leaning in on for this and for additional federal funds?
Denise Froelich for the record, that is exactly what I'm saying, yes. And as far as timeline is concerned, we anticipate that, of course, we need to hire the positions, but once those people are seated, our strategic plan for the upcoming fiscal year is to do that research, to make those applications, develop those projects, and then have greater clarity. So I would anticipate that if we don't have all of the answers by the end of the fiscal year, we will have many of them.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question relative to the grants and project analysts. You have 5 positions that are listed here. And I'm curious to know, and first I have to say thank you for investing in grants and drawing down federal dollars to benefit our state. I think that's essential. As you develop these positions out, I'm curious to know, do you have a generalized expectation for how much award monies would be anticipated per position? And if you don't have that now, do you expect that that would be a performance expectation for each one of these grant positions as you go forward?
Denise Froelich for the record. Thank you for the question. Yes, so I can't give you the exact dollar amount per position, but I can give you an idea that we're looking at about 15 opportunities that we would directly be applying for, and then additional opportunities that we'll be partnering with. Of the 15, we only have dollar amounts for about 9 of them, and those are a mix of just year 1 allocations or year 5-year allocations. But given all of that preamble, the dollar amount of those is approximately $341 million. And yes, we will be establishing as part of that year 1 strategic plan key performance indicators, and those will be included in terms of federal dollars as well.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? See no questions. I will accept a motion to approve. I have a motion from Assemblyman Watts, a second from Senator Nguyen. Sorry about that. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, it will be item 4 that we'll hear along with item 83. It's the Office of the Attorney General. Good morning.
Good morning, members of Interim Finance Committee. Teresa Benitez Thompson for the record, Chief of Staff to Attorney General Ford, here to present along with the Governor's Office of Workforce Investment, who I see down in Las Vegas. This is to increase settlement income authority to provide grant dollars from our T-Mobile grants to go in for 3 projects. One, the Public Education Foundation Teacher Pathway Program, in which GOIN is partnering with the Nevada Department of Education to fund a teacher pathway program to address Nevada's teacher shortage crisis through the Grow Your Own program. Second, a partnership in collaboration with the NBA champions, Las Vegas Aces, to increase access to financial literacy, sports internship, and mental health for underserved youth. And third, a pilot program in partnership with GOIN, the College of Southern Nevada, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and Western Nevada College, Hope for Prisoners and the Nevada Department of Correction to reduce recidivism among Nevada's female population by providing workforce development training programs at Nevada's 3 correctional facilities. And we're open for questions.
This morning. Thank you. Members, any questions? Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief of Staff Benitez Thompson, for your quick presentation. I had a question, but also I'm so glad to see Mrs. Sarah in the audience because she may be able to assist with the question I was going to ask. And my question pertained to the Public Education Foundation's Teacher Pathway Program. I dove into it. I was really excited about it to provide a pathway for paraprofessionals, recruitment, mentorship, and providing financial assistance to move that pathway forward. But my question was, and I know we're still sitting waiting for some bills to be signed by the governor, but my question was, how would this Teachers Pathway Program work in conjunction with other programs approved in the 2023 legislature, such as the Incentivizing Pathways to Teach grant or the Teach Nevada Scholarship Program to develop and increase the teacher pipeline?
Lisa Levine, for the record, Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation. Thank you for that question. So there's definitely a few different programs to reduce the teacher shortage. This is just one of them, and this is one that currently doesn't have any state or federal funding towards it. It's been entirely privately funded through the Public Education Foundation, who's our partner in this project proposal. I believe Craig Statuki is also there in the Carson City building from the Nevada Department of Education. Nevada Department of Education has been a significant partner in this, but this is complementary and in addition to the other programs to reduce the teacher shortage.
I don't think Mr. Oh, no, here he is. He walked right in, and now he's on the spot. So I'd be happy to kind of repeat what we were talking about. Welcome. I just had asked Gowen and also Chief of Staff Benitez Thompson about the paraprofessional, which is now another teacher's pipeline program that is seeking funding under the T-Mobile settlement program. And I was curious, and I'm glad you're here because you guys are also potentially getting another bill that may be pertinent. Was curious how you foresee this teacher's pathway working with the funding and other bills that enhance the incentivizing pathways to teach grant and the Teach Nevada scholarship program. And then I know there's also a big ask of NDA and another bill to take a look at, and I think it's Praxis, I forget what the program is, and how you see it all working together.
Morning, Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Blockus. Craig Satuki, Interim Deputy Superintendent for Educator Effectiveness and Family Engagement, for the record, and I apologize for my rush over here. In the proposal from going through the AG's office that focuses on the paraprofessionals, that is currently not a project that we're operating through the Department of Education. It's essentially a separate funding stream that's being operated through right now the Public Education Foundation and UNLV. So it's a separate pipeline piece that we are helping provide support. In terms of future potential for those students that are in the paraprofessionals program, they may be able to utilize those incentivizing pathway teaching program and the Teach Nevada scholarship program to help as a kind of a secondary funding source to help those students get through. But right now we are very appreciative of Goen and UNLV and the Public Education Foundation for really being great community partners and solving our teacher pipeline issue and realizing that as an agency we can't necessarily get all the pipes into the pipeline, so we're very appreciative of their work.
Thank you so much for that, and I'm excited to see what happens. I know you guys are going to have some of that like arm, and hopefully everybody can work together, and hopefully we grow a lot of teachers because I know they are well needed. With that, and I would ask Madam Chair if it's okay, one thing, just because there's so many great programs being offered under this, including the pilot program to reduce recidivism of Nevada's female prison population, also that money would be allocated to, is to ask if we can get annual status reports to the Interim Finance Committee on the workforce development activities supported by these funds, to include at minimum the number of participants in each program and the funds that were expended. So hopefully they're all successful.
Thank you so much. Yes, these programs are exciting. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the WNBA will be doing. The work that the ACEs have been doing in our communities has been amazing in the classroom and working with our students, but really excited about the recidivism program, right? Getting people on the right track. So, members, any other questions? Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. And I also would like to just reading over everything that's happening with the recidivism. It's so exciting. My question has more to do with the possibility of getting staff individuals for Project Sandy. It's mentioned on our background information that there will actually be navigators to help individuals go through this process. Have these individuals already been hired, or are they in the process of being hired? And again, I would echo my colleagues of just getting an update, because this is really exciting stuff, and would be wonderful to be able to hear how it's going with the hiring and everybody that's part of that.
Thank you, Lisa Levine, for the record, Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation. We're really excited about the Reducing Recidivism program as well, and all the other programs that are part of this, but thank you very much for calling that out. No one has been hired yet, but the Navigator model is something that has been extremely successful with our partners under the U.S. Department of Education grant that GOEN manages, the Sandy grant, and they're essentially career counselors, because we know that a lot of times the folks who are going into these programs need a little bit of extra support, and that's what the Navigator model does. And so that's something that we're really excited to incorporate in the prison education program. And just one other thing I wanted to mention, the timing of the Reducing Recidivism program is really perfect, because Pell eligibility is going to kick in for people who are incarcerated starting the new fiscal year. And so this is really going to set up an infrastructure in the state of Nevada so that we're ready to take those federal dollars as that model changes.
Members, any other questions?
Madam Chairwoman, if I could make one suggestion, it was regarding the reporting, and I think it just might help streamline among the agencies, since we've got 3 sub-grantees who are working with multiple agencies, and then we have GOEN with different reporting requirements through each grant reporting back to our office, and then I hear the request for a report to Interim Finance Committee. So if it makes more sense to standardize this, perhaps we have the sub-grantees doing the quarterly reports to GOEN, those quarterly reports coming to us, then we, because we're going to be getting, I think, annual reports on these anyways, could get those to you. And so if you're acceptable to that versus them going having to report to us and report to you, and we'll have a mix of time frames. So if you're amenable to that, we could structure it that way.
We could do that. To simplify it would be great, as long as we have, the staff that are hired, the number of participants that are in each program, and the expenditure of the funds, how that money is being spent, in an annual report back to us. That would be wonderful. And if that would come from you, and instead of GOEN or the sub-grantees, that would be easy. Members, any other questions? Not seeing any. Then I will move to approve item 4 and item 83.
So moved.
Second.
With the reporting requirement. Correct. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator John Darrell Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. Item 21, the Department of Business and Industry Housing Division. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Monroe Moreno and members of the committee. For the record, Steve Acroth, Administrator of the Nevada Housing Division. The work program before you allows for the acceptance of an additional $511,000 in reallocated emergency rental assistance funds provided by the U.S. Treasury through the American Rescue Plan. The division requested an additional $10 million in ERA2 funding, and that was reduced to the $511 that you see here. Also a transfer of $516,000 from reserve. And with that brief overview, I stand ready to answer questions.
Thank you so much. I know we have a few questions for you, and we'll start with Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you, Chair. It's my understanding that there's a question whether or not Clark County Social Services will be able to actually accept this additional money. Have you been able to confirm whether or not they will be able to? And if not, what's the plan on how we use the money?
Thank you, Assemblyman Miller. Steve Acroth again for the record. I have not received confirmation. I have received confirmation that at last count they were down to their last $2 million in ERA2 funding to provide rental assistance. If they can't accept it or won't accept it, that is the priority to get that funding. But if we can't, there is a rule in ERA 2 that once you hit the threshold of 75% expended, you can use it for any other affordable housing, what's the right word? Programs, as long as it serves 50% AMI, area median income, and under. So if Clark County can't use it, certainly the division can use it in the activities that we work in.
Thank you. Is there an indication or understanding as to why they've not been able to confirm whether or not they can accept the money or not?
Steve Acroft again for the record. They just needed to go back to their team and make sure that the funding could be used for their existing program.
Okay. And then just another quick question. Do we have anything ideally in the pipeline if they can't use the money that you maybe already got in mind that you can follow it up with?
Steve Acroft for the record, there's always a demand on what we have. So I haven't made a decision yet on exactly what that would look like, but certainly we would put it to good use.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, I have another question. So this one is relating to, I mean, in the same area, but Assembly Bill 396, if it's approved by the governor to provide additional rental assistance to Clark County, Reno, and Sparks, how does the department propose that it'll be utilized for persons so that they're not double dipping into both programs, essentially?
Steve Acroft for the record. At this point, we probably haven't developed that, but from the division standpoint, all this has been tracked. The ERA assistance has limits as to exactly what they can do and when they can do it, and there is a time frame there. My best guess, not having 396 just directly in front of me and exactly looking at it, is it would probably be run through the same type of programs. Certainly in Clark County, it would be through Clark County Social Services, I would assume. And they have records and they would know that, hey, they need to bifurcate the two funding sources. And quite honestly, based on the information that has been provided to me, my guess would be that there wouldn't be double dipping because they would be out of that federal funding by the time that 396 funding is provided to them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had a question. How close, I guess, is the county to getting to that 75%?
Senator Neal, I will tell you that we've exceeded that on the program. We've, based on the latest reports, again, that I have received, by the way, Steve Acroft for the record, that 96 million, 96 and change of the 98 million has already been expended and provided in rental assistance and administrative costs. So if what they have told me is accurate, that they have about $2 million left, if anything, that money has already been provided to renters in Clark County.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, not seeing any. I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator Don Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, item number 38, the Department of Health and Human Services. Good morning. Sorry to have you hanging there for a minute.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Dina Schmidt for the record. I serve as the Administrator for Aging and Disability Services Division. With me today, I have in Las Vegas, Justin Robinson, our IT Manager, Jessica Adams, our Deputy Administrator, and Tiffany Lewis, our Fiscal Manager. We are here today for this work program, which is requesting a transfer of $350,000 from the residential placement category to the contract category. This is to cover a shortfalls for some contract costs that we have incurred in order to implement our new data systems and rate study that were recommended as part of our budget that was recently approved. We were approved to do this new rate study, which is very complex. And so some of these contract costs have been incurred. And so this is to cover that shortfall. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Good morning. It's great to see you all here and there. I just have one question. So as you know, we have worked on this for a really long time, and it's great to be here now in front of this, understanding that you have a shortfall relative to the IT consultants. I'm curious to know, do you have a plan going forward, given the amount of time we can expect that IT is going to be required in order to do this transition to ensure that we're able to do billing and case coordination for each of those pieces? And having spent a number of years working specific on this issue, right, a lot of times our IT costs are overrun because we didn't anticipate the number of hours adequately. It's not that we didn't put a plan in place, right? So know that I'm not suggesting that you don't have a good plan, but I'm curious to know, is there a plan to cover potential shortfalls if additional IT time is necessary? And then secondarily to that, as you roll out this new system and case management, is there an effort in place to coordinate with the provider organizations to ensure that they're able to do this new rate billing piece part of it? And is there a component relative to ensure that the providers are on this case management system alongside you?
Dina Schmidt for the record. So I'll take the first part, and then I might have to pitch to my team member for the second part of the question. So regarding the additional shortfalls going forward, we anticipate, so a few things that are coming into play. We intend to have the rate study completed by March of next year, so the IT costs won't be incurred beyond that. We also have been able to, with the approval of our recently approved budget, this particular category in the personnel costs, we often have to have contract staff to cover for state personnel, but our developmental service technicians were approved for a two pay grade increase in addition to the state increases. So we really believe that will offset our need for contract staff to support the ICF. So we anticipate that we'll have plenty of funding in this category to, fighting a cold, to cover the contract costs going forward. So, I mean, worst case scenario, we would have to come back and have an additional work program if we run into some kind of major problem in the future, but we anticipate, at this point, we think we'll be able to make it. And then I'll turn it over to Jessica for the second part.
Good morning, Jessica Adams, Deputy Administrator for the record. As far as coordinating with providers, so for the first part, for the rate study, we have already launched those work groups that include provider staff from both our supported living providers and our jobs and day training providers. And then for the new case management system that we have coming on, yes, they will absolutely be a part of that, because just like our current system, our providers are able to build through that, they're able to log in. We're actually hoping with this new system there will be more things that those providers will do. So as we start building that out, and as we start getting to the point where we need providers, they will actually be a part of those work groups too.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I understand, and this is secondhand knowledge, it's not in your work program, that we're looking at Therap as a potential provider. Is that accurate?
Jessica Adams for the record, yes, they are under contract.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate that clarification.
Thank you for the questions. Members, any other questions for the Department of Health and Human Services? All right, not seeing any. Thank you so much. And with that, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator Don Darrell Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion does carry. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, it's Item 120, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Danilo Dragoni. I'm the Deputy Administrator for the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. This morning with me, Andrew Tucker, Supervisor for Air Quality Planning with the same division. And we're going to be ready to answer any questions about this work program.
Thank you for the nice and short presentation, and I know we do have a few questions from you. We will start with Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Could you provide us an update on the current activities as they relate to the reduction of greenhouse gases in air? And then also, if you could, how the new federal guidelines that are coming out, I believe it's the Climate Pollution Reduction Planning Grant, how is that working out? And then also, how is the outreach to the sovereign nations or the tribal communities going?
Thanks for the question. So the division is statutorily mandated to prepare the annual greenhouse gas emission inventory for the state. And we have been doing, and we are going to do this every year. So expect an inventory for the end of the year. Besides that, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant from EPA is just at the beginning. We just applied at the end of April. We heard from EPA that they're moving forward with the acceptance of this grant for the state of Nevada. We are, of course, with this work program, we are getting ready for all the processes for the RFP necessary, and so, and start working on this grant. We are aware that the Clark County is also either applying or has just applied, so they will receive some funds from the same climate pollution reduction plan, CPRG, Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, the planning phase, and so we are going to work with them, of course. And in relation to the question about the tribal nations, the division has a tribal liaison, and we are going to use this liaison to communicate with all the tribes that are interested in working with the plan. The CPRG, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, requires collaboration and outreach to the tribes, and of course we intend to do that.
Thank you. So just to make sure, the grant was accepted for the full $3 million, or was it for less than that, or for more than that, or the amount, basically?
Danilo Dragoni for the record. Yes, the grant, the EPA, we haven't received the award yet because EPA is a little bit behind the time, but they told us that the money is on the way for the entire $3 million. So the check is in the mail. Correct.
Members, any other questions? All right, not seeing any. Thank you so much. And with that, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Backus, a second from Senator Don Darrell Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion does carry. And that finishes item F. We'll move on to item G.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Sarah Kaufman, Legislative Council Bureau Fiscal Analysis Division. If the committee turns to volume 3 of their packets, on page 299 is a summary of the IFC contingency account. I would note that currently the total amount in the IFC contingency is $14.5 million. In the unrestricted amount, there is $3.2 million for general fund and $1.6 million for highway fund. As previously indicated at the beginning of the meeting, the committee is not, it's not permissible for the committee currently to take any actions related to contingency requests, and as such, the items for restricted and unrestricted contingency, items H, items I-1 and I-2 will be deferred to a later IFC meeting to be considered, and as such, the amounts for the unrestricted and restricted contingency account for both highway fund and general fund will not change at this time.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on that report? Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you. Will this, thank you so much, and I realize there's nothing we can do about this, but will this delay impact the cost in any way of the department's needs? Will it make it even more expensive if we were not to look at this information for 2 months? I think that is.
So members, if we are blessed to get out of this special session today, we will come back and finish this IFC for the items that we were not able to complete. If not, then just remember you all love me dearly, and we will do a virtual IFC next week once we are out of IFC, or whenever we get out of the special session, and continue this. We will not wait until our next calendared IFC meeting. We understand that these are important items that need to be taken care of as soon as possible. Any other questions? All right. So we are not able to do H at this time. That would be deferred, or I, I-1 or I-2, and we will move on to item J. In J1, we have the Department of Education. All right, members, we did have the Department of Education in the room a little earlier. Maybe they stepped out. We will come back to them. If they do not come back before we adjourn today, we will add them to the next mini IFC. And we'll move on to the next item under J, you'll notice that item 2 was withdrawn. So we'll move on to item 3, and that is the Department of Wildlife. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, fellow committee members. My name is Mark Fries. I'm the Habitat Division Administrator for Nevada Department of Wildlife. And we're here to request your approval to accept 2 donations. The first being from Nevada Bighorns Unlimited in the amount of $100,000 for habitat rehabilitation for the Draw Fire, New Pass Fire, Stewart Fire, and Miller Fire areas. And the second donation is from Nevada Gold Mines in the amount of $50,000 to help us with our water development program. And I'm here to stand for any questions. Thank you.
I just have one question. Both are for matching funds. Will these, you'll be able to draw down federal fund dollars or other dollars with these?
Madam Chair, Mark Fries for the record. That is correct. We will be able to use them as match for federal funding through the WISFR programs.
Perfect. Members, any questions for the Department of Wildlife on accepting these 2 donations? Not seeing any. I thank you so much. And I will accept a motion to approve item J, 3A and B.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you so much. And I do see the Department of Education in the room. I'll let her grab. Are you ready? You need to take a break. All right, then we'll go back to item J1, the Department of Education, the request for approval to accept a donation. Good morning.
Good morning. Pardon me, busy day. Megan Peterson for the record, Deputy Superintendent for the Department of Education. And before you today, we have the final allocation from Tesla in the amount of $4.5 million for distribution according to their allocation plan. And I am here for any questions.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on the acceptance of this donation? Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the backup, I don't know, on page 80, it shows the list. Well, maybe these aren't the same. I don't know what this letter means. It's dated 2018. So are these recurring donations that Tesla has suggested, or are they new?
Megan Peterson for the record. So what we had included was an entire list of allocations to date, and then later in the packet are the remaining allocations. And so we have, starting from January of this year through the rest of the year, entities such as Discovery Museum of Southern Nevada, Robotics Education, Washoe County School District, all the way through Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful as the remaining allocations for that $4.5 million. So it's an all-inclusive package with the remaining payments to be made. And they are one-time in nature.
Okay. So that was just to show us what happened 5 years ago with no other, because I don't see any other, because it's 5 years, right?
Megan Peterson for the record, correct. And so it is a compilation of all of those that have been paid to date with the remaining payments from January of 23 through June of this year as well.
Okay. Thanks, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion does carry. Thank you so much. And moving on to the last item under item J, that will be J4, is the Office of the Military. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. This is a request for the approval to accept
the public assistance grant funds from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, for the federal major disaster declaration for these April and March atmospheric rivers that the state applied for and was granted. So this will be a 75% reimbursement grant fund back to the counties and to the state for the expenditures towards public assistance.
Perfect. Thank you. Members, any questions? Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you say this is a 75% reimbursement back to the counties, but clearly they expended well beyond 25% of $1.5 million. Is that just that they're just going to write that off, or is there a continued program coming?
Thank you, Senator. John Backetall for the record. That's a great question. This is put in phases by work programs as they submit their reimbursements, and then we continue to issue them the money as soon as possible. So we do have FEMA embedded with us currently, several members sharing office space with us, and they will continue to work with each of those impacted counties to incur more and more of those costs towards the federal government to reimburse us at that 75% rate.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator Don Darrow Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion does carry. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is item K. And as explained at the start of the meeting, we will not be hearing item K1 at this time, but we'll be moving on to item K2. Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Item K2 is a request for increased authority to receive and expend $596,800 for additional equipment and installation costs relative to dishwashing equipment at High Desert State Prison. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Members, any questions on K2, the replacement of the dishwasher at High Desert State Prison? It's just under $600,000. What kind of dishwasher is that?
Really, really good ones.
Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the question is this says maybe I'm on the wrong one. No, because that's K1. Let me go to the right one. I guess it's more of the follow-up on probably what you were talking about, which is, that must be like one of those magic dishwashers that, like the Jetsons. But I'm trying to figure out. I mean, we did so much, budgetary stuff, like why this is popping up. That's the only thing I wanted to know, like why this wasn't included in the regular budget cycle.
Thank you for the question. Kent Lefevre for the record. This is part of the 21 CIP. So it's not part of the 23 CIP. This request is coming from the 21. And this need was identified in January and submitted. These dishwashers are aged out and they need to be replaced. And so dishwashers in a prison are different than the ones in your home. These particular dishwashers are like 20, 30 feet long, and they do massive amounts of dishes every day. So the project was funded as 21M32. It was bid, and the bids came in over budget. So, and we isolated that it was just the cost of the equipment that was driving that. It wasn't additional scope. So then here we are today asking for a transfer from a project that is completed at High Desert to cover the cover this project and provided a successful conclusion.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Gokajia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In looking at this, now the central plant remodel there at High Desert has been ongoing, and this is just kind of the final piece. And you need this equipment. It's probably not fair to say that it's one dishwasher's costing $600,000. You got to put it in. You've got to plumb it. And I assume it's just completing the project the way I look at it. Is that correct?
Kent Lefevre for the question, or Kent Lefevre, thank you for the question. This, the central plant included replacement of boilers and chillers at the High Desert State Facility. We had favorable bids on that project, and we were able to realize significant savings on that project. So part of that money is being requested to augment this project, which is a separate CIP, to accomplish the work that was scoped out in 2020.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Not seeing any. Will you be presenting on K3 as well for the Northern Nevada Correctional Center?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can go ahead and present that, and we'll take the votes together on the two.
Kent Lefevre for the record. This request is for 21M58, which is the scope related to additional door lock controls at Unit 7 at Northern Nevada Correctional Center. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. So members, this one is for replacement of locks and controls in Housing Unit 7. Are there any questions for the presenter? Not seeing any, but you have to smile. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. All right. Seeing no other questions, then I will accept a motion to approve K2 and 3.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator Don Darrell-Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, item L. Request for approval of expenditures from the account for maintenance of state parks. And I believe there are two items, 1 and 2. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Janice Keeler with the Nevada Division of State Parks, Deputy Administrator. So we have two items for your approval today. The first one is request for approval to spend $36,000 to fund half of the cost of the purchase and installation of a new repeater to improve communication coverage with the Pershing County Sheriff's Office at Rye Patch State Recreation Area. The cost for the repeater is approximately $72,000, and so State Parks and Pershing County are going to split the cost because it'll benefit both agencies. Right now, there is not very good reception there, so this project will improve safety and communications. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions? Senator Gokachia.
Thank you. Just a clarification. Now, this will be a state repeater in the state facility at Star Peak?
For the record, Janice Keeler, yes, it will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, not seeing any. I thank you so much.
Okay, the second item for your approval is a request to spend $25,256 for emergency road repair on the campground access road at Echo Canyon State Park. And this damage was caused by the flooding back in March. The road was repaired once, it flooded again, and it's been repaired twice. This money is going to be reimbursed by FEMA. I'm working on the preliminary damage assessments right now to get this reimbursed. So this work has already been done since this was an emergency, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And you said the work's already been done, and we looked at what happened over the weekend. We had a lot of flooding here in Carson City. Do you think you're gonna, with all the melting of the snow, have to do this again?
I don't think so. Right now, anytime the reservoir fills, they're releasing all the water out of it as quickly as possible so it doesn't overflow again. And we're also currently working with Sunrise Engineering to do a redesign of the spillway so that we can get it fixed and hopefully avoid this in the future.
Perfect, thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, not seeing any. So with that, I thank you so much, and I'll accept a motion to approve L1 and 2.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion does carry. And thank you. Moving on to the next item on our agenda would be item M. And welcome back.
Good morning again, Chairman Moreno, members of the committee. For the record, Steve Acroth, Administrator of the Nevada Housing Division, providing an update to the Home Means Nevada initiative. Based on what we're seeing currently, we're really starting to move forward on projects. And that is either taking the form of closed financing or executed agreements in the development portions of things. That's pretty much the update. I will be more than happy to walk through some status of some particular projects that have reached that point, and I think I'm going to do that because I see a head nod. So I'll roll through those. I do want to mention there's an interesting article in today's New York Times, as a matter of fact, about struggles that other states are having, and not really other states, just developing affordable housing in this environment we are with rising interest rates. And it really ties together, I think, the Home Means Nevada initiative really brings to the fore that we're able to get projects done that aren't getting done in other places in the country. So if you have time, because you got nothing else to do today, it's a pretty good read. And then, so I'll give a high-level overview of some of the projects coming to the fore, and then we'll be able to answer any questions. So looking at new development, the first one I'd like to highlight is the WHA number 2 project. That is a tribal project right down on Snyder Avenue. We have executed agreements. We had a groundbreaking last month. So very, very pleased to see that project moving forward. Golden Rule Senior Apartments Phase 2 is going to the June Board of Finance. That's in combination with a bond project. That's 60 units of affordable housing, really targeted to those at 50% and under AMI. Half the units in that project are going to that population. Dick Scott Manor, we will have a groundbreaking. That's in Reno, I believe next week. So happy to see that project get moving. That agreement has been executed. The Blind Center of Nevada, we've had an agreement executed on that particular project, so it's moving forward down in Clark County. Village on Sage Street expansion, again, the agreement has been executed, so that project is moving forward. In the preservation area, most of the projects are either discussions have been ongoing or documents in final review. None of those have been finalized at this point. In the home ownership and rehabilitation category, our program for down payment assistance has helped 146 households, and we are targeting right on time with the obligation of the funds to get that money out the door. Nevada Rural's program is also going forward. We've executed agreements with Rebuilding Together Southern Nevada, but they have not drawn down any funds at this point. And then in the land acquisition category, the Nevada Rural Housing Authority has been able to purchase 4.8 acres of land in Winnemucca for future development. We are continuing to have ongoing conversations with the city of North Las Vegas. They've indicated to us that a developer has been brought to the fore on the purchase of the Texas Station property, and that developer has agreed to potentially sell a portion of the 73 acres to the city of North Las Vegas for the development of affordable housing. That's about all I know right now. We will be having follow-up discussions over the course of the next couple of weeks to determine exactly what their intentions are, both for the remaining acreage and exactly what the portion in North Las Vegas is. I don't have an acreage on the parcels or exactly what that looks like at this point in time. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
And all faces turn to Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, okay, let me process. How much money are they expending to buy a portion?
Steve Acroft, for the record, their proposal, their application was for $10 million. At this point, I don't know if they need all of that $10 million or a portion of that $10 million, because I don't know exactly the parcel of the land that they're looking to purchase.
So you did receive an amended application?
Terry Reynolds, for the record, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. A little context back. We sent as you're aware, Senator Neal, we sent a letter to the City of North Las Vegas City Manager May 3rd requesting information and an update on the project with a final date of June 30th to actually come to us and have either an amended application or an update on the project. We received an email yesterday from their grants person saying that they were in negotiations for a portion of the Texas Station property, and that's all the information we have to date. So they do have time, if they are able to acquire a portion of that property, to proceed under the existing award that was given to them. However, they also have questions as to what other funds that they can use that they have available to them. These are grant funds, so that's in the email, and I'll be happy to provide copies to you of the email. So we just received this yesterday. Yesterday was a very busy day for us, as it was for you all. We are going to schedule a time and talk to them over the phone so we can get an update and see where they're at. But we do need to, because two things, we need to be aware of what they're doing in terms of their project, their grant application, but also timing. We want to make sure that they can progress in this project under the time limits that we have the grant funding available to them. Should they be able to acquire the property within the next 30 days, have an agreement on that acquisition and go forward with that, they probably have a good opportunity to meet the timeline for their project. But if not, they're going to be compressed in terms of being able to do that. So that's the discussion that we will have with them.
Madam Chair, quick follow-up. So, did they tell you who the developer was?
Senator Neal, Steve Acroft, for the record, they indicate in the email that Director Reynolds referenced Agora. I don't know who Agora is. Not familiar with them.
And so, based on what you partially know, Agora is going to do affordable housing on some portion of the acreage of the Texas, but now the Fiesta is not a part of the conversation.
Steve Acroft, just a quick modification. I don't know that Agora will be doing the development of affordable housing. As it's indicated, Agora will allow the city to purchase a portion of that. So that's one of the questions, if they could be the developer or if the city has to go through a process to choose a developer.
But the intent is still to build homes, not necessarily 270 homes, but some houses, not apartments, on this land.
Steve Acroft, for the record, I'm not sure what their intent for the use of the land is. It would have to still be part of the requirements that are spec'd out in the for affordable housing in the state and local fiscal recovery funds. It would have to adhere to that.
Okay. Well, you know, I really look forward to this additional documentation that spells out the money that will be used to acquire it, and if there will be houses built on this land. Yes, I'm so. Is that by the 30th of this month that you should get this information?
Terry Reynolds, for the record, Senator Neal, that is correct.
All right, that's awesome. So that's 16 days. I'm going to mark my calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director, if you could share that email with the committee, that we can all have it. And then once you do receive that additional documentation, if you could forward that to us as well, that would be great.
Terry Reynolds, for the record, yes, we will be happy to do that, and I will leave a copy of the email correspondence at the desk here before we leave.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? All right, not seeing any, and there will be no action taken. That's just an informational, and a lot of information coming from this informational. Appreciate you joining us today. And that moves us on to item N on our agenda. There was only one item under list N that was pulled, and that is item number 10. And we have been trying to get in contact with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. But I believe our fiscal analyst may have some information for you, Senator Neal.
Madam Chair, I do believe we were able to contact somebody from the Las Vegas Metro, and they should be either on the Zoom link or in Las Vegas.
BPS, do we have LVMPD representative joining us by Zoom?
Yes. Hi, Chair Moreno, Rich Hogan, Chief Financial Officer, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. With me also is Ms. Joni Prusnell. She's the budget director for LVMPD.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Senator Neal, you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I ask the question to Metro, I do want to make a special note for you as chairwoman and the vice chair that there's supposed to be multiple reports in this section from the other cities that receive more COPS funds, and apparently Metro is the only one who is complying with the law. I only know this because I've been on revenue since 2011, and their annual reports that are supposed to be filed by North Las Vegas, Mesquite, Boulder City, Henderson, there's a couple, well, I won't say there's a couple, but they have not complied with the annual reporting, and there is no different time period in which they are supposed to submit these reports. So I would just, want to know, like, if this has been going on prior to this year of not filing. I would just benchmark 2019 forward. But, so, I digress. The question that I have, Mr. Hogan, is on your recruitment, it shows that you've only in 23 recruited 7 persons for 22-23. Is that accurate?
One moment, I'm just getting to the 22-23. So the funds, again, for the record, Rich Hogan, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. No, ma'am, we have recruited far more than that. That was just for that particular quarter. We've recruited 38, if you look in the inception to date. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joni, in the way this report is organized. So there's the 232 fund, and then there's also the additional more costs, which has recruits there as well. Joni, is there anything else to add to that?
Hi. So this report only shows that quarter's academies. So I'm showing 46. I'm not sure where the 7 that you're looking at is coming from.
I'm looking at page 353, which if you go down the column, which references the sales tax initiatives, and it has all the bills. And then it says fiscal year 2023 actual at the bottom in gray. It says more cops, officers, and then it gives you the timeline up to FY 21 to 22, and then it says FY 2023, and then it has 7, and then it has your total number of 609 officers. And then on another page, when you get to the additional 0.05, which was the add-on, which is not, it's not your more cops that we did for the strip corridor. This was the add-on prior to that legislation. It shows a 17 number, and that's on page 355.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That one is a little bit misleading, but if you look at the bottom of that, it shows 17. It's weird. That's just the difference between what was in last quarter. That one's kind of a weird one. Total additional more cops. I mean, we provide like on like 2 more pages down, it has the academies that happened in that quarter, and it shows that there was 46 recruits in that quarter by their demographic data. It's like should be 2 more pages below that.
Yeah, I saw that on page 357, and because I was going to ask about that page too, because you only recruited 5 women. And you're saying this is just for the quarter. So this is not the year. This is just January, February, March.
Yes.
And then 2 African Americans for the quarter. So how do you, so your annual, because this is, your chart show annual and then your graph shows quarter. So I was going by your annual number, but you're saying that I should treat this as a quarter rather than a fiscal year actual. This is your current quarter, and then you have your fiscal year actuals. Because I was looking at your numbers and trying to go across, and then I was just super curious about, number one, your in-fund balance, because two reasons. Number one on page 353, it said your fund balance is roughly 66 million. And then on your fund balance on page 355, which says fiscal year actual, and I'm assuming this is quarter. So is it 17 million in the quarter? That's your fund balance?
The quarter and the year to date are both 17. So it's 66 in the original More Cops 0.25 fund, and then 17 million in the 0.05 additional More Cops, and then the grand total fund balance 83.6 million.
Okay. And then my second reason that I was curious about it is because this particular revenue, because your report doesn't include the more cops, which is just the strip corridor, and that's the report I'm really curious about. Is that reported at a different date?
No, it's just a different report. We submit. It's called the Crime Prevention Act report. We submit both of those at the same time. I don't know why you don't have it.
So Crime Prevention
We submit
Act
both of those to the same.
So, okay, Crime Prevention Act of 2016 should be reported at the same time as this one, but it's not here.
Yeah, we have a separate report for that.
Okay.
That we filed with the state.
Madam Chair, is there a way that we can get that updated because, or at least added at some point? Because that particular 2016 more cops from the 2016 Crime Prevention Act is subject to be pledged. And so I'm just curious about what the fund balance is in that one, because it is, I just wanted to know what that in-fund balance is, being that if SB 1 of 23 session moves, it is a pledged revenue. They're both a pledge revenue, let me correct. More cops, and this one that we see in here is a pledge revenue.
Thank you, and we can get that information. I know she said that she submitted it. We'll make sure it's in with our next IFC report, and we will be reaching out. Thank you for letting us know. We will be reaching out by letter to the City of North Las Vegas, Mesquite, Henderson, and Boulder City for their reports to have them at our next IFC. I see that Senator Harris also has a question.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on something Senator Neal brought up about the demographics of the recruits. I think it was it 5 African Americans recruited? 2. I almost tripled the number. 2 African Americans recruited, which represented, I think, 4% of that class. What is Metro doing, if anything, to get that number up substantially?
So, again, for the record, Rich Hogan, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. If you would like to have a discussion about recruiting, which we did in the presentation that Senator Neal had us give, we probably have to get the right folks here. We're the finance side, not the recruiting side. So there's quite a bit done, but I would probably be remiss if I address that when there are folks far more capable of speaking to that than I can.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. And in Metro's defense, I will say oftentimes you try to recruit, but it's hard to get people that want to come on to join law enforcement. I spent 4 years of my life in recruiting and background investigations, and it's a heavy lift to get folks to join the ranks. So looking at the numbers, there definitely needs to be more outreach creative outreach in our African American, our Asian, and our Pacific Islander communities, because there were no recruits from our Asian and Pacific Islanders demographics. So getting much more creative, but it is difficult. So I don't envy your recruiters at all. Members, any other questions? All right. Not seeing any, and that was just an informational item. There's no action to be taken. I thank you both for hopping on with such a short notice, and we will look for the other report. If we do not find it, our staff will be reaching out to you to have you resubmit that to us. All right? Thank you so much. And members, that takes us to the last item on our agenda for now, which is public comment. We do not have anyone here in the audience in Carson City for public comment. Is there anyone in Las Vegas that would like to make public comment at this time? Not seeing anyone come to our table. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, would you please press star 6 to unmute your phone?
Thank you, Chair Monroe Moreno and members of the IFC. My name's Jeremy Koo. I spoke to the Assembly yesterday with regard to the bill pending before the special session. And since there are matters within the bill that will relate to the IFC, I felt there was that in addition to being a 30-year A's fan, I also happen to be a lawyer in the state of California. And I wanted to address a couple of points that Mr. Powers addressed during the Senate work session yesterday while the Assembly was in the informational session, and that relates to the scope of the governor's proclamation and its relation to the amendments that revived some of the bills that were previously vetoed by the governor. I would note that the cases that Mr. Powers, with all respect to his knowledge and experience in the field, the cases that he brought up involved very broad requests to the legislature, both in the Nevada Supreme Court case as well as the Texas case that the Nevada Supreme Court cited. And Mr. Powers suggested, in particular with relation to the state family leave provisions, that those could be justified as promoting economic infrastructure as within the scope of the governor's proclamation. But I'm concerned for those members that would like to see those provisions survive a legal challenge to the act, that infrastructure in the context of the supposed advisory language and the original SB 509 arguably relates to physical infrastructure and not more nebulous economic infrastructure concepts. Indeed, the word economic does not appear within the scope, within the proclamation itself. I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm just saying that it's not as definitive as Mr. Powers of the LCD made out to be. And if those on this committee and in the legislature would like to see those provisions survive a legal challenge by interests opposed to such provisions, they should consider that when they are performing their calculus on whether to support this legislation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your comments. BPS, do we have anyone else joining us on the phone lines?
There are no other callers to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you so much. Members, I am the eternal optimist, and I believe that we will be able to come back and finish this agenda later today. So instead of adjourning, we are going to recess, and I hope to see you all later today after we sign and die on the special session. Yes! So I will see you all later. We'll stand in recess.